Welcome to another video roundtable discussion. Today we'll be talking about Nelson Mandela Bay and the local Reinvention think tank. As usual, we've got Denise. Denise is the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Bay Business Chamber.
Good day. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Denise. And our guest today is Kevin Naidu. Kevin is the acting chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Business Chamber. He is also the managing director of AutoX. And on my left, we have Quinton Uren. He's the managing director of Genomark. Gentlemen, welcome and welcome to video and our roundtable discussion.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Denise, maybe if you don't mind, before we start getting into the questions with regards to why we're here today, if you can maybe just give us a bit of the experience that you had. I know last week you went to Joburg. I think you guys had a road show. You met up with a few consulates and embassies. If you can maybe just give us a rundown on that, and obviously the link to the conversation that we have today.
Okay, no, thanks for that, Sia. So as a local organized business, we believe in the potential of Nelson Mandela Bay. And to this end, we've initiated a campaign called Bay of Opportunity, and that really talks to the untapped potential of the Bay as a two-port city and with a very diverse manufacturing base. We believe that this can become the diverse manufacturing base on the African continent. And to this end, we are now forming national partnerships. We're talking to a lot of national role players. We're trying to get them interested in the Bay. And one of the initiatives we did last week is we did a briefing with a number of consulates, embassies, and also international chambers, where we introduced the Bay of Opportunity to them. But we also featured as a big selling point the volunteerism of our business community here and their action-oriented approach in terms of developing solutions and working together to unlock the potential. They were actually very impressed, I think, with what they heard, because it's quite unique. There's not many places in the world where people work together in the way that they do here. And also, I think what is amazing is the innovative approach that we've adopted. And people like Calvin and Quinton that are here today are very much part of that innovation that's going on. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they're going to say about our local economy reinvention think tank, which is really recognizing the speed of change that's happening in our environment. And we need to retain our manufacturing in this part of the world, but also grow it and look to diversify into other sectors.
No, thanks, Denise. So Kelvin, what was interesting, because I was actually part of the event that Denise attended in Luga. I think after the event, I spoke to the representative of Singapore. They were actually very amazed about the things that are happening in the Eastern Cape. I think, Denise, as usual, they had this belief that, look, I mean, if you talk about the Eastern Cape, Nelson Mandela Bay, it's just bad press, like the crime and everything else. But I mean, she was amazed to such an extent that she actually even indicated that she might want to invite you, Denise, to go and represent the chamber in Singapore. But maybe, Kelvin, on your side, I mean, you're the acting chairperson of the chamber, and I'll call it one of the masterminds behind the formulation of the think tank. What was the reason behind it, and how does it link up to the Bay of Opportunity?
Yeah, thanks, Sia. So what we've found through various forums is the pace of change in the industry, in the economy is extremely fast. So we just need to look at the geopolitical, geoeconomic changes that have happened in the last 6 months, the environmental pressures businesses are facing, the world is facing, changes in market sentiments. You know, younger people buy differently to older people, and the pace of technology change. These are all putting pressures on traditional businesses. So the ones who survive are the most agile. So the think tank's role is to generate ideas on how we can reinvent ourselves to stay relevant. If we don't, we're going to be displaced by someone, not necessarily someone in the city or in the country, probably someone from Asia or Europe or the Americas. And that means our economy starts shrinking. It means we start becoming less relevant. So we've got to push ourselves ahead of the game, back to leading edge. And yes, we'll make mistakes along the way, but if you hedge your bets, you have the more ideas you have, the more reinvention strategies you have, the more likely you are to survive than if you stick steadfastly to what you did yesterday. And that was really the background to how we started the think tank.
So there's no rule book or anything like
There's
that?
no rule book.
Pretty much trailblazing.
It's trailblazing. It's is it a good idea? Can we make it successful? Can we implement it? Is it feasible? So the people making up the think tank are some very energetic, ideas people. You know, a lot of them are engineers, some academics, but these are ideas people. It's looking at how we can use our existing infrastructure, our existing brain power, our existing capability to do something different. So if I had to summarize what we supposed to do in one word, it's agility.
Can I interject here? Because I think something that frustrates me, and I think a lot of other business people in the country, is that you end up having lots of workshops, meetings, forums, and a lot of it seems to be just talk. What makes this different? And how do you get to the point of action when you, especially in the ideation phase?
Yeah, so and that's sort of a disease that a lot of us suffer from, is to take an idea into something that's deliverable, and you know, we have to understand why we don't deliver, why we stop at the idea generation, and part of the reason is we're scared to fail. You know, we tend to think big, and we fail too late. But the idea behind this is, let's start small. You don't have to be 100% perfect. If we're 50% perfect, if we're 50% there, let's get going, because then if you fail small and you fail quickly, and then you move on. The other thing we do differently is, it doesn't matter how simple the idea is, there's a plan. You know, there's a process we follow. The idea generation, the ideation phase is totally no rules, just let it flow. But once you prioritize, you've got to start having some kind of plan to be able to drive it, so you can measure your performance. But generally, ideas don't make it to implementation because we think too big, we want perfection, and then we never really get started. By the time we're ready to start, somebody else has started it. So we break it up into small. It's you know, the software guys will talk about rapid application development. You know, where you start with a little bit and then you grow it and grow it and grow it, and you get progressively better. Whereas traditionally, you know, traditional waterfall project management techniques, if we apply that to this kind of work, you want to get a perfect package that you can hand over to someone to run with. And by that stage, someone's beat you to the game. So start small, fail early, learn from your mistake, and move on.
All right, maybe I just want to move to you, Quentin, because when the think tank was launched, it was launched together with the Bay of Opportunity. I remember, was it last year when we had the manufacturing showcase, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's right.
Just to take it a step back. I mean, you've got your operations headed in Nelson Mandela Bay.
Correct.
What does the Bay of Opportunity mean to you as an individual, and obviously for the company that you represent?
Well, I see what we do in the Bay, what is possible in the Bay. I sit in a very fortunate position that we get to export 95% of our work globally. And I look at the Bay, and everything that is possible that happens within my company is a product of all the services around me. Engineering people, design people, manufacturing people. And so if I look at this on a broader scale, we, as the Bay, are really primed for export. And that is the opportunity that we are seeking. And we are just one small microcosm of many other companies out there that have export directives, export targets, and are achieving them. So yes, the Bay of Opportunity for me also means diversification. We're sitting on this very tenuous pyramid, all in this automotive base. And if we just think a little bit laterally, we could use all of those technologies that we have developed so well and actually mastered in other manufacturing aspects. And so for me, that is the biggest opportunity that we have in the Bay, is our rich history in manufacturing. Just a slight deviation, directing it elsewhere, and I think we could be successful at anything.
It's actually a very important point you make. And I know that when we get a lot of visitors that come from other countries and elsewhere in South Africa, when we take them to Gendermark, they're always very impressed because they don't expect that kind of capability and that kind of innovation.
Yeah, unfortunately, like was said earlier, we know corruption, crime, and what by and large South Africa has become known for. When you have meetings overseas, it's about your failing infrastructure. Do you guys actually have water, electricity, and all those types of things? And so when people come and visit and see the real South Africa and the true opportunity, they are always shocked. And I think it's not just about the company, but the people in that company that make this happen. And this is just all local people from Nelson Mandela Bay.
You know, Denise, when we talk about manufacturing in Nelson Mandela Bay, I like the fact that we're also talking about tech. We're talking about innovation. And I think, Kelvin, the engineers that you were saying form part of the think tank are actually people that are actually based in Nelson Mandela Bay, which maybe then takes me to my next question, specifically with Gendermark. I mean, you have invited me to come and tour your plant, which was amazing. I was impressed. And I was actually excited to see that we actually do have the skills based here in Nelson Mandela Bay to actually do the work that you guys do. If you maybe just want to touch on that.
So, I mean, a little short history. We were a fully automation company, started out in 1989, and we built up our business from a very small concern to a company that's now, our headquarters in South Africa, in Port Elizabeth, but we have a company in India, we have offices in Germany, the UK, and America. But I think the most important thing is that all of this was done with local talent. No imported talent from anywhere, just local Nelson Mandela Bay people. Okay, the company has now sprouted a new division, a software division as well, talking about tech. And this tech is so deeply sought after globally because of our South African uniqueness. Again, very resilient people that think completely differently to anybody else in the world. And most people, we always careful about what we're saying when we're overseas or so, and we don't have to be, because we have the right stuff right here with, again, the resilience and the way we think. We have a completely different mindset to anybody else in the world, and that is a unique selling proposition. Okay, not a selling proposition, actually, that's a real value proposition.
Yeah, no, I think that is our greatest asset. So I agree with you. And I think also when you look at challenge, there's always opportunity, and that's the mindset we're trying to create in the think tank. But Calvin, maybe shifting gears slightly. You spoke about the changes we've seen geopolitically and everything else that's happening in the last 6 months. But even if you just look at the last 2 weeks, or in fact every day, I wonder what else is coming out of the US that could affect us. If you look at the automotive tariffs, how do you see that playing out? Because this economy is very anchored, very much anchored by the automotive industry, and especially the supply chain that supports that.
Correct. And so there's still a lot of uncertainty. It's we can't deny that. And the most agile companies are the ones who can survive the uncertainty. So there's multiple scenarios we're going to consider. And depending on which scenario is most likely to be reality, our strategies need to, we've got to choose the right strategies. So firstly, if you're manufacturing something that nobody else is manufacturing, right, then it makes no difference, because they're still going to need what you make. So in that case, you have to worry about somebody out-teching you, somebody coming out with better technology than you. The second scenario is if you're competing with companies in a country that has the same tariffs that we're going to see. Then you've got to look at, is it easier for them to deal with logistics and transport and production efficiencies and all the other things that go with it than you? Are they able to deliver the product to the US cheaper than you can? Because both countries are going to face the same tariff. So then you've got to be better than perhaps someone in Europe. Third scenario is, are you competing with any local American companies, or when say local to America? Because in that case, you've got to be 25% cheaper than they can deliver. And then fourthly, you've got to look at if there is a local American company, do you have the efficiencies? Do you have the capacity to take up the slack if they don't have the capacity? Typically, they're not going to have the capacity. That's why you're in business, right? So how quickly can they develop the capacity relative to how quickly you can improve your performance to beat the 25%? So there's multiple scenarios that need to be considered. In all of them, I think you have to aim to be better than the 25%,
100%.
if that's what they apply, right? So how do you do that? You've got to get your production efficiencies, manufacturing efficiencies better than anywhere else. You've got to be able to deliver better than anyone else. You've got to be able to develop and improve technologically, manufacturing wise, supply chain wise. You've got to improve faster than they can. Otherwise, you're always going to be facing this 25%. Now, a lot of companies, I think we got lazy, because where we have protection, where we imposed tariffs on imported products, instead of seeing that as a reprieve, just a period of time to develop to where we don't need the tariff, we actually enjoyed the benefits of the tariff. Right now that there's going to be reciprocal tariffs, we don't face that protection anymore. So those who used the protection that we had internally through AGOA, through import tariffs that the DTIC has imposed, those who used that opportunity to improve themselves, they'll be fine. Those who didn't, those who enjoyed the protection, now have to start working really hard. So depending on what your strategy was the last 5 or 10 years, and depending on which scenario is most likely to be reality, you've got to choose a strategy. But regardless, you've got to work on improving so that you're not penalized by the 25%.
But also alongside that, you need the basic enablers to be in
Correct.
place, so business can get on
Correct.
with the business of.
Correct, and that's an important point. Quinton mentions the infrastructure challenges we face here.
Yeah.
So if I have to spend 20 million rands on generators, that's 20 million rands I could have spent on development. That's 20 million rands I could have spent on manufacturing efficiencies.
Yeah.
It's 20 million rands I could have spent on training people, on hiring specialists. But I've now got my capital's now been diverted so that I can stay in business.
Just to survive.
Just to survive.
Just to survive.
Just to survive.
That's
Correct.
the problem. That's the big problem.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on challenges, but before I come to you, Quinton, I think what you're saying, Kelvin, is basically that, look, I mean, as an organization, as a company, you forever have to be innovative. I think then that's where the think tank is coming in, because I remember in one of the meetings we've had at the chamber, one of the main objectives of the think tank is that innovation. Once we've innovated, then we take that, call it a study, and then we put it out into the market, into the Nelson Mandela Bay market, to say, look, whoever's got the capabilities to actually produce a product which will, I guess, make us unique as a metro, can then go ahead. If you maybe just want to expand on that.
Yeah. So innovation, innovation is not just product or tech. Innovation is doing something we're already doing better. So if we can find a better way of doing something that's already happening, then that in itself is innovative. with some of the work think tanks doing with hemp, for instance, using a hemp-based product for sound deadening rather than a carbon-based product or a hydrocarbon-based product, using hemp-based products in batteries for certain applications. It's not changing basic technology. We're not putting out a different product, but we're getting the product that much more efficient to the market. So whether it's going to be 25% or not, I don't know, but it ticks the box that we're doing things low carbon. It ticks the box that we're doing things cheaper because we're localizing what normally wouldn't be localized. So so the think tank is looking at innovation very broadly. Some of those innovations will be new tech, new products. Some of those innovations will be applying technology from one industry to another industry. Taking the technology that we put into lithium batteries, for instance, and applying it to regular lead or nickel or whatever other batteries. To use the technology that we have, for instance, in catalytic converters and applying it to electrolyzers for the hydrogen economy. So it's looking very broad. It's looking at anything different that adds value. So our definition of innovation is quite wide. Is it something different? Is it something that we can do quickly? Is it something that can diversify the industry, the local industry? If so, it gets researched. So the outcome of the think tank will be a whole series of white papers. Some of them will get taken further to feasibility or pre-feasibility, feasibility. Others will be published. So if it triggers another idea that someone can benefit from, then we've done our jobs. So and that's the thing about ideas. No idea starts in isolation. It's a collection of other ideas that people have had and we're able to collate. And then, so the intention is to get these ideas out. The more people who see them and study them and analyze them and assess them, it may trigger something else. It may trigger another innovation, and then it spreads virally. So that's the thinking behind the innovation strategy. Is think wide. Doesn't matter how small the idea is. That small idea may trigger something big to someone else.
So thanks, Kelvin. I think whilst on innovation and obviously issues that we face as a metro, Quentin, you've got a product which was not necessarily born from the think tank at the business chamber, but I mean it's an innovative idea, and then it talks to some of the problems that we have as a metro, in fact, the whole of the country when it comes to skills. You've developed a product, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's called Odin.
Yes.
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 Odin, yes. And maybe Denise, you can also just come in after Quentin has responded in terms of now the partnership that we're seeing and the value that it's going to start to add to the local economy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what you're referring to here is more the Odin education side.
Yes. Yeah.
The various aspects of Odin workstation, Odin checkpoint, and then Odin education. So maybe the two that is relevant here is Odin checkpoint and Odin education.
Yeah.
So we had a passion project, right? Started about maybe 5-6 years ago about changing education in South Africa. We see what is coming out of high schools, the kids coming out of high schools. We see what is coming out of universities, and we see what is coming out of the technical colleges. And by and large, these people are unemployable. Okay, they are no use to me, or I'd say any industry, as they come out there. It takes at least 18 months to 2 years to actually get people onto the right track. Okay. So there needs to be a complete overhaul of the education system. We understand that that's not going to happen. Not the way the government is behaving right now, simply for me. So we started out with a project where we wanted to actually help kids in underprivileged schools. It comes out in the form of a tablet, access to the internet, all the school books, and a concierge service so they can ask for anything they want to. But no social media on it. It's completely blocked. It's now morphed into something very powerful. What we can do for kids in grades 10, 11, and 12 is start giving them industry-led education. The things that Calvin, myself, or any other company requires, okay, specifically. Again, we're sitting with a syllabus and a curriculum that is very old. It's not up to date. How do we get the kids today up to scratch for what is really needed? So this industry-led education that we're putting onto the tablets now are modules that are driven. We have 9 modules at GenderMark that we know is essential to us, ranging from additive manufacturing to cybersecurity, IoT, artificial intelligence, okay? A very, very powerful tool. And how do kids get to know about this in the right way? So we made up 9 modules, and then we distributed that onto the tablets nationally. And what we are seeing now, we can actually see the kids that have a passion for something, link it to their aptitudes and direct them in the right way to actually fulfill that passion. I think one of the reasons why I am where I am today is because I'm extremely passionate about engineering and solving problems. I was very fortunate in my life to have the right sort of nudges and bumps along the way to get me where I am. Not many people have that opportunity, but we can give that to them. So coupled with that, we're also finding a dire need in the manufacturing engineering space for improving the excellence in their companies and really uplifting the guys for training, for new skills. And to that end, we're now piloting a project with the chamber that we've coined a new term. It's called a digital process technician. It's a future job. There isn't a job like that is required right now. But to actually document their standard operating procedures, do videography, understanding how a machine works, and downloading shall we say, the tribal knowledge or the institutional knowledge in the company down into a digital repository. And I think that's very important also from a risk perspective for companies. And then we can start training the young coming in to get them up to speed far quicker and easier.
Yeah, and then maybe to build on what you've just said, and also when we were discussing that project, we said that while there's a technical skills shortage, there's also a need for people with the right passion and orientation. So we've tried to match the two together because that's key if you want them to succeed. But what we recently did is we launched a skills development desk in response to this technical skills challenge, because that came through very strongly in our think tank work streams. And what we're doing with the skills desk is a very practical approach. We're going to be undertaking a skills audit within the manufacturing sector to understand what is the current technical skills shortages, but what are the future needs as well, so that we can respond to that, because the gap between industry and the tertiary institutions and also the schools, there's a huge gap, and we need to find ways to close it. We've got high unemployment rate in the country, but then we've got a shortage of certain skills. So we need to orientate people to where the needs actually are. So this pilot project that we're doing in partnership with GenderMark, and also one of the investors coming into our area being Stellantis, I think that one is quite important. And I think it can also result in other pilots being considered, because what we've also done with that project is we've already gone to other manufacturers to say, if we put people through this training, would you take them on as trainees at the end? And there's an interest in that. So we're not just putting them through something and then what? We want to make sure it's sustainable in terms of what we're doing. So I think the skills development desk is critical. And then the other thing that we started doing is we're in a very tough economic environment. And unfortunately, there have been some factories that are closing down or they're retrenching or downsizing. We've reached out to them and we've got these skills lists, and we've also been sharing that with companies that are looking for certain skills. So we're able to assist displaced people as well, which I think is also important, because often the focus is on new investors coming, new jobs, but you also need to save what you have. I don't know if you want to comment more on that, Calvin.
That's critical. So the skills strategy, as it were, is firstly based on retaining skills that we have. Right? So we have got people with lots of experience, and as companies close down, the best of the best are going to be taken away. They're going to go overseas, right? They're going to go to other provinces. So you start losing the best of the best. So that drops the median. So we start becoming weaker as an economy, and then we try to make do with what we have, or we try to attract somebody from the outside. But the first step is to retain what we have. So what we're doing with the for want of a better description, the matchmaking service is to take existing skills and look at where there's existing need. So companies closing down doesn't mean we need to lose all those people. Somebody else will have a requirement for that skill. It's much easier to employ somebody in the same city than to have to recruit nationally, and rather grab him before he gets taken by some company in the UK. The second leg to that is now. Firstly, how do you retain people? It means we've got to retain the economy where it is. You can't be shrinking and still retain, because there's not enough jobs for the people we have. Secondly, we've got to look at attracting people from the outside, right? Otherwise, you become very incestuous and you don't learn anything new. So we've got to also attract skills from the outside. Now that means attracting people to the city, and it is an attractive city. People want to move here. There's a whole, what do they call it? Semigration trend now towards the city. So there's something in the city that people want. But at the same time, you've got to be able to employ them gainfully. So you've got to attract people. And we also consider things like if a wife gets a position at Gendermark, her husband is usually a professional as well. What does he do? She's not going to leave him in Johannesburg. So we also got to look at a partners matching function. So you attract family down here, and then they're stable. The third leg of the strategy is development. We've got to develop our skills. So it's retain, attract, and then develop. And develop is not just universities. You got to take care of it from basic education.
Yeah.
Right? So we currently employ, if we employ a recently qualified, recently trade tested fitter, he is actually useless to me right now, because whatever training he's had is adding no value, zero value. So I'm reluctant to hire somebody who's recently trade tested, because he hasn't got the right skills. I'd rather hire somebody with some experience. Now you end up in a position where you're only looking for people with experience, so the people to circulate from one company to the next, because there's none of the new people coming in. So it starts with basic education, and it's got to get into the high schools and the universities and the training colleges, the technical colleges, and things like that. And then on top of that, we will have, most of us have apprentice programs to develop the skills to where we want them to be. But as long as you don't address the basic education, like Quinton was alluding to earlier, you're going to get an entire generation of people that are unemployable. Unfortunately, the pace of change in industry has been much higher than the pace of change in basic education and tertiary education as well. Right now I've got machines making decisions through live camera feed that I used to use an operator to do, but I don't need the operator anymore. What I need is somebody to maintain this new vision AI system that I've got. Right? I can't find anybody locally because no one has the basic maths and science skills to be able to learn how this technology works. So it's an area that requires attention, right? If you don't do that, it's not going to happen. There are programs in place. The one that comes to mind is the iGEMS program, and
Brilliant
I've
program.
spoken to. We actually host a few of these high school kids. I've got a group visiting us in a couple of weeks, and iGEMS went out and identified the best of the best, and through all the hardships and difficulties these kids go through, they've nurtured them through, coached them through to where they are people that we can use. But guess what? These are the best of the best. The best of the best are not going to stay here. So we've got to take the iGEMS program and expand it to more than just the best of the best. What are these kids doing differently to everybody else? So so it starts at primary school. You know, and it's not just education. You know, there's a school that we're involved in. In fact, the chamber is involved in an adopt a school program. But there's a school that my company is involved with, and kids come to school because of the meal they get at the school. Right.
100%. I mean, so these quintile 1 schools, I mean, it's if ever you want to see something that breaks your heart, you know, we live in a very privileged society, most of us. Go in to the townships and have a look and see what the schools look like, what they have to put up with. It's absolutely abhorrent. And the only way that we can give back into this is with this program, with the tablets for the kids, and then run what we call this Future Industry Leader program on top of it, that is industry-led, to try and not only work with the best of the best, but also make it available to everybody. It has to be inclusive. And by that, we can get everybody interested, everybody on board, and hopefully rise this tide and raise all the ships as well.
Yeah, I think that kind of approach is better rather than a hands-out approach. You want to empower people.
You need to empower people.
And maybe if we can just quickly switch gears, Quentin, you run a work stream in the think tank called automotive, okay? And that's a term you coined, so it's something that's made up. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm always fascinated. By when I go around and see in the automotive space what it is that we deal with in building a motor car. And I always ask people just to think about all the components and the assemblies in the motor car. And it's absolutely stunning. And with the motor companies that we have here, they're all exporting. Most of them are exporting globally. Very, very successful. And that, if you distill it down, is people understand the processes, whether it be painting processes, I mean, really high-end water-based paints, all the way through to axle assembly, castings. We don't have we have engine manufacturing as well, maybe not gearboxes and things like that. But by and large, the engineering side of it is covered and covered really well. And if we are able to take that, which has been given to us as a real gift, and just look a little bit left or right, this automotive, change it to automotive, just the alternatives to automotive, okay, in the manufacturing space, it is huge. I don't think if you took certain people out of certain industries inside of Nelson Mandela Bay, I don't think there's anything we could not do.
So give us some examples.
So if, say for instance, electrolyzer manufacture, fuel cell manufacture, anything that one could think of, medtech. The medtech industry, I think, is something that we really have to look at, because this one still works with all the stuff that we normally work with in a motor car. It's lots of electronic sensors and devices and the assembly processes that go together with it. But there's an opportunity in that. And we know as people are growing older and older, they're going to need more and more care. So that is a surefire market that is going to grow. So again, anything in the manufacturing space, I believe that could be done here.
But what about areas like micro-mobility? Do you think that's something that could be a good play for us on the African continent?
It could be a good play for us.
Mm-hmm.
The types of the changes that have been happening
Yeah.
right now, when you think of batteries, we're seeing a resurgence in the ICE engines. We're seeing a resurgence and a very strong push in hybrids. We just need to be sure where that is going, or at least make a call in which area that is going. But
alternatively, hedge our bets.
Hedge our bets in those areas, yes. But micromobility is one facet that we could look at. We're starting to look at that now, but it's still early days.
Yeah, I think Denise, what I hear is, I mean, it's wonderful stories, but not just stories. I mean, things that have already started to happen. How do we then not only tell the country, but tell the world about Nelson Mandela Bay, about all the wonderful things that we're doing? I know you've started, I mean, with the road shows that you were doing in Gauteng last week, and I know last year you were in Cape Town doing the very same road shows. But like, how do we then tell them about the wonderful work that is done at Gendermark and the wonderful work that is done at AutoX? If you can maybe just care to...
So we're working on that one. I'll tell you. Let me start with. So most of the people that come to Nelson Mandela Bay, they call it the best kept secret. Okay. And that's something that we have to change. And I don't know if we're always flying under the radar, but punching way above our weight. Yeah, far too humble. Yeah. That's one thing. And I think it's time to stop being humble. I think we've got something really powerful. We have something to share. We have something to actually contribute. And I wouldn't stand back. Understanding now what the power is of South African manufacturing, the ideas, the way we apply it, the perseverance, the persistence that we have, this resilience that we have is it's unique to us. So we've just succeeded in a project in Saudi Arabia where it took a year to get to the order, and the German customer was amazed that our people were there every step of the way for them. But it's that resilience to never ever give up.
Yeah, and you go first, and then I'd like to give my thoughts on that as well.
I think as a city, there's a lot of bad press. People like bad press. It's sensational, and that's what they remember. But you start small. I remember about 6 months ago, a year ago, I asked Denise for all her slides from the chamber presentations to incorporate into my corporate packs. So when you're talking to investors overseas and you're talking to customers and suppliers overseas, they see what's happening around the business. It's not just about my business. It's about the ecosystem we're operating in. So I've got a slide, for instance, with all of the companies that are members, or the premium members anyway. So Gendermark gets a mention on my slide, right? And the idea behind it is to show that this is a thriving ecosystem. I'm not standing alone. So if something goes wrong, it's less likely for me to fail. So we start small. We publicize what we're doing. Through the ambassadors program, we talk about the good things. We don't deny the bad things. We don't bury our heads in the sand and say there's no problem. But you talk about what you're doing about the problems, and that's this resilience. Our strongest point is not our infrastructure or anything like that. Or even our ability as innovators. Our strongest point is if you're still in business right now, today, it's because you survived all of the hardship that came our way in the last 10 years, right? So if you take your business from here today and you operate it in another country with the same principles, you'll clean up. No one's
absolutely, you'll clean up.
So our resilience is our single strongest point, our single strongest selling point. And when overseas investors, suppliers, customers see that, they're not stupid. I mean, they're not successful because they were lucky. They're successful because they know what they're doing, and they recognize that resilience. We've got to get the word out there. So the more of us who incorporates not just our, when we're doing a sales pitch, don't just sell your business, because your business is not surviving by itself. Your business is surviving because it's operating in an ecosystem. And we've got to start selling the ecosystem.
Absolutely. And I think something that we've been very proactively doing is we've been establishing national partnerships, because we need to make sure we also on the national stage. So when it comes to things like ports, rail system, the focus can't just be on Joburg, Durban, Cape Town. We need the priority focus here as well. We're a two-port city, which is something unique. So for us, those partnerships are key. And then also we form partnerships not just with the auto industry in terms of NAMSA, NARCAM, ARDC and so on, but we also have partnerships with the Consumer Goods Council. We're busy forming one with AgBiz, because our agriculture economy is also very important in this area. And we already seen results coming from those partnerships. So they're not just things where you sign an MOU and you stick it in a drawer. It's about working together. The South African Property Owners Association, there's a couple of things we've already started doing with them. But in terms of NARCAM, as an example, they've actually decided to bring their NARCAM show here in August. And it's a showcase of automotive component manufacturing. And I think it's a strong vote of confidence in our city, and also recognizes that almost half of the country's automotive sector is located here. And we keep the factories even in Tshwane going from Nelson Mandela Bay. So I think that is important for people to understand. And then what Calvin spoke about in terms of our people and the resilience. And also I think, when you look at what we're doing as organized business, we've been able to get our arms around the city. Even though it's wide urban sprawl, we've been able to unite the business community around common purpose. We've got 11 geographic clusters that we've mobilized businesses in common areas into these groupings. 10 out of 11 of them are already formal business associations. And when I look at the traction that is starting to build now, it starts with the first one, and people think it's crazy. It's a crazy idea. Why would people do these things? They pay rates and taxes. Why would they go beyond the norm? But I think we've all, as a business community, come to the point where we realize, yes, you're at the tipping point. But it's not just South Africa. If you look at everything going on in the world with wars and what have you, you're at the tipping point. But you need to take the destiny into your own hands. You can't wait for somebody else to do something. We all have to do something. And you're much stronger if you all work together. And I think where we've been good as a local business community is recognizing the strengths of different people. And everybody's got something they can contribute. So we've been making that space for that.
The other thing that is very strong as well within the meetings that we have and the inclusiveness of the program is that when we're sitting down as businessmen or people looking at opportunities, we share them as well. That's very important. People can call me with ideas or problems that they think they might be having around it to solve a particular problem, or ask for advice on how do you deal with people in the United States. How do you actually get business and get them to sign the deal, where they don't have that experience in it, where we have that experience of how to behave in different countries. And so we openly share that, because again, it's for the greater good. Because selling in America, selling in Germany or Spain or Portugal, it's a very different game. And to make these international contacts, we share those contacts with whoever asks. And it's been amazing to see the success of some of the smaller companies that wouldn't have had that access to get their product across the pond, be successful in that.
No, thanks. I think, what comes out strongly, Kelvin, you touched on it, it's basically the unity and the ecosystem. I think the relationship that we have, earlier on we had a call with Dr. Fraser Moleketi, and she was actually amazed about the things that the business chamber and organized business in general is doing in Nelson Mandela Bay. And it's evident to your guys' testimony and how it's helping each of your companies. I want us to draw to a close, but maybe before we wrap up, I think, Kelvin, the one thing that we haven't touched on in a bit of detail, which is actually of interest to me is the hemp project. I know when I spoke to Nick, Denise, I mean, the value chain that's linked onto that project, which is obviously coming from the think tank, is amazing. I was just thinking about the final product, but when you talk about the fact that, look, you need to think about it from the beginning and the value that it's going to add. You want to maybe just quickly touch on that?
So this is one of those projects that grew so fast I was battling to keep up.
Grew so fast.
So it covers all aspects of the value chain. It starts with production, and this is where we're talking about growing the stuff. This is agriculture, growing the right stuff, making sure it's the right quality for the downstream applications. So there's a whole infrastructure around that needs to be developed. There's farmers that need to be developed. There could be, and a lot of them will be small, SME type organizations. There's growers associations that need to be formed to be able to manage the quality and the products. That's because you can't crossbreed, because then you get downstream problems. Then there's the whole agro processing that goes with it, because you've got to extract. There's the fibers and the herds and the seeds that go into hopefully medical applications and oils, hemp oils and things like that. But for industrial applications, the oils will be some use for the oils, for lubrication and those kind of applications. There's also applications for the fibers in sound deadening material, in textiles. Textiles is something we're not paying much attention to. Right now, if you have a textile company in Port Elizabeth that is using hemp products, you've got to get it from Cape Town, which puts you at a disadvantage to your Cape Town competitors, right? But we have it here. Even the herds has applications in, we can produce carbons from the herd. We can use in certain applications. One close to my heart is obviously batteries. From processing it, we can produce very specialized carbons, nanocarbons, nanotubes that have very real applications in my industry. We can use the fibers and the herd in a combination, certain ratios for what we call separator material. We can eliminate the lignosulfonate additives that we currently use, because it's already inside the product, and this is waste product, that would normally get thrown away. And then downstream, obviously, you now have the product portfolio just proliferates. There's thousands of different applications that you can find once you've done the basic agro processing. So it's an entire industry that's going to be spawned from the simple idea of growing hemp. And the agro processing and the downstream processing, this is the magic of this. It's industries and technologies that we already have in the city right now. Right? In addition to generating this industry, we also generate an industry, or we contribute to industry with lower carbon. It's not necessarily zero carbon, but significantly lower carbon if you look at the alternative products. Sound deadening and battery material right now is made from hydrocarbons. Right? This is made from plants, from something you're growing. So you've eliminated a big step of carbon that we'd normally produce and normally end up in CO2. So it's growing very, very fast, and there's probably 100 different applications that have already been identified. It's hard to keep up with the applications, but it is, and this is the kind of spirit that the think tank wants to encourage. This spirit of experimentation. I think we lose that. We get caught in corporate business, and we lose this let's go try it. if someone has an idea, well, go try it, test it, see what happens. If it doesn't work in the lab, it's fine, move on. Right? We tend to get stuck into this. Let's get everything perfect. Have this massive plan, and then implement. So it's also highlighted the value of experimenting and just go do it. Just go try something.
No, thanks, Kelvin. I think, like I said, we can sit here and talk about the Bay of Opportunity for the entire day. But thank you very much for joining us. I think I'd just like to get closing remarks, I think, from all of you, maybe starting with Denise. I think specifically on why you believe on the Bay of Opportunity and what it means to you. I'll start with you, Denise.
Okay, I'm obviously very passionate about the Bay of Opportunity, and I believe in the potential, and it can be unlocked. And I think, like people sitting around the table right now, I think it's all about people. And I think we've been able to draw in people who care, who committed, and I think we must continue to lead in a positive manner. I think it's all down to strong, positive leadership, courageous leadership as well. And it's not about being naive. I mean, yes, there are challenges and issues, but if you get sidetracked by that, then it becomes difficult to actually get into the implementation and action part. So for me, I think it's about positive leadership. That's how we're going to unlock the true potential of the Bay of Opportunity.
Yeah. Kelvin?
Yeah. So. Apart from the agility and resilience that we talked about earlier, we've also got very strong infrastructure. We've got strong manufacturing, strong agriculture, agri-processing. We've got 2 ports. We've got a university. We've got extremely good infrastructure. Yes, it's got its problems, but we have the infrastructure. We have the resilience. We have the ability, in addition to that, we're also small enough that we can make changes, right? If we were a big city, if we were a Detroit, I hate that comparison, but if we were Detroit, we wouldn't be able to change anything, not anytime quickly. But we're small enough that we can make changes really quickly, see the results fast, and move on. So I wouldn't have the same view if I was still in Johannesburg. But here I feel like we can make a difference. We have what it takes, and hence I'm still here. So it's nice to be part of something that you can see the results of your efforts. Which you won't see in a bigger city.
Quentin?
For me, I think why I believe in the Bay of Opportunity, it's the infrastructure, the resources that we have at hand. That's great. For me, it's about the people that is involved. I mean, we have really passionate people driving this. We have real visionaries out there that can see things, positive people, because you need these positive people to see these opportunities, especially in the gloomy times. It gets tough, but for people to identify this, and then we have a dedicated set of people that actually turn it into action, because ideas people are not the best people to execute, but we have the right team. So for me, it's all about the team that we have at the chamber and everybody that is supporting, the companies that are supporting. I think it's an unbeatable team. That's why I believe in it.
Well, I think for me personally, I mean, obviously representing BDO, and people at BDO will tell you that BDO is about elevating business, elevating people, and elevating society. I think for me, being part of the business chamber, being part of the Bay of Opportunity, I mean, there's no best way to basically practically apply this thing that we're about at BDO, being elevating people, business, and society. I must say, as a person that's not originally from the Nelson Mandela Bay, I'm from Durban originally. I've been here. In fact, today is my 3rd anniversary, because that's when I moved down to Nelson Mandela Bay, and I must say I've been enjoying it. But yeah, thank you very much, Kelvin, for being with us today. Quentin, thank you very much for being with us today. Denise, as usual, my partner in crime. Thank you very much. I mean, it's a Bay of Opportunity. I mean, it's the good news that we need to continue spreading out there. Thank you.